Okay, hi everybody. Apologies if this comes across slightly weird, because this is my first time experimenting with the screen record function on the iPhone to try and do a tutorial, for want of a better phrase. What I'm going to show you is how I've been using my iPhone to keep my eye in photography over the course of this last 11 weeks of lockdown. And certainly in the initial weeks of lockdown, this was crucial, I feel, because if you remember, we were only allowed out of the house for half an hour at a time, once a day. And with the best will in the world, which is I love photography, there's no way that I was going to give up spending that time going for a walk with my family in favour of going for a walk with my DSLR. And similarly, if I went out with my DSLR, tripod, filters, etc., we'd have gone about 5 minutes from the house and then spent the entire half hour just watching me faff about with it. So, for the sake of my family's sanity, using an iPhone is quite important. Plus, if you've followed me on social media, you'll know that I really have fallen down the rabbit hole of loving abstract photography. And I find that it is so much simpler to do via iPhone than it is to do via the DSLR. And that is somewhat freeing. You know, you can do it anywhere, anywhen, as long as you've got your phone on you. And as you'll see, I'm going to demonstrate to you the fact that it takes no time whatsoever, and you can do it whilst in the midst of doing other things. So, without further ado, I'll take you to a video that I shot using AvgCamPro. The app that I use is, as I just said, it's called AvgCamPro, AvgCamPro, which has some very easy settings. You simply suggest the number of pictures you want to use, what the shooting interval between those pictures should be, and any start timer that you want. You have a button to lock exposure, and then you simply press take image. And all it does is it takes a series of images using those settings, and then an internal algorithm merges them together. And then you choose if you want to save it or not. And on this walk, I took one facing forwards with the family in the front, and I took one over my shoulder. In fact, over my shoulder, and I was looking the other way, which is why the camera's moving around all over the place. I suppose the only other thing to point out there was the fact that I used a function called lock exposure. So I just clicked on the brightest part of the sky and then told it to lock exposure on that, rather than changing exposure between the different images. And that's it. That's the entirety of what I did on that particular walk. And it created two images. This first one, which actually I don't like, the only reason I've kept it is for illustrative purposes. One, this sky totally blown out and very distracting. And two, whilst I have had some success with images taken with the family in the image, here they're far too close to where I was when I was taking the picture, which leads to this unpleasant effect whereby they are far too distinct in the image, whilst at the same time also being blurry and indistinct. So rather than looking like a deliberate choice, it looks like a mistake. But what you can see in this image is this is the effect that I really like when you use this app, particularly when you use it on trees and foliage. You get this lovely impressionistic style. I think of it as being quite like Monet, which is probably incredibly incredibly rude of me, and Monet will be turning in his grave. This is the second image that I took. Now, that video I was using purely for illustrative purposes. I didn't necessarily expect to get anything good out of it, but I really like this, particularly if you zoom in to this section. I love those colours and contrasts and tones. So I actually did edit this image further. And what I'll do now is I'll just quickly show you how I did that. So I'm going to open an app called Snapseed, which I'm sure you will have heard Rob talking about. Snapseed used to be created by Nick, who created the Leica Silver FX Pro that most photographers swear by. Google bought Nick in order to access Snapseed. It's a free app and it's an incredibly powerful app, and it's one that I recommend to everyone. Now, as you can see, I've already opened this image in here, so I'm going to very quickly go through. Unfortunately, on the iPhone screen record, you can't see what I'm pressing, so I hope you bear with me. I will try to remember to tell you what I'm pressing. So if I click on the Tools menu, I'm going to click on Crop, and I'm going to very quickly crop this into the area that I said was of interest to me. I'm using a 5:4 ratio simply because that's the native ratio for uploading to Instagram without losing any of the image. So you may think that that's a horrendous creative choice, but it just makes my life easier. So this is the cropped image. At any point in Snapseed, if you just simply hold your finger in the middle of the screen, it will take you back to show you a before, and then when you take it off, it'll show you the after. So the first thing I did, and this is a relatively new thing for me after watching Rob Friel's PRPS? No, that's us. RPS talk, is this tool called Drama. Now, Drama, to my eyes, is like someone going absolutely mental with the clarity and contrast sliders in Lightroom. But having seen Rob's interview, I've played about with it a bit more, and I really like it. So for this image, I mean, you can see the different native filters in here, but what I chose was this dark 1 filter, and I whacked the strength up to 100. I left the saturation as was, because I really quite like that effect, and I simply click the tick to accept it. Again, before, after. The next thing I did is not from Rob's. This is something that I've used myself an awful lot, particularly with these style of images. If you click on the Details tab, you've got the option to change the structure. Now, if you whack it right up, again, it's like you're playing with the clarity slider in Lightroom. What I've been doing with this type of images, I tend to take it down a long way, so it gets quite blurry. If you then change the sharpening and increase that, it may purely be to my eyes, other people may not like it, but the effect to me is creating an almost oil painterly type effect. So you've got some areas of the image that are a bit indistinct and blurry, and then you've got some just really sharp pinpoints. So as I say, it feels a little bit to me like an oil painting image. I'm just going to accept that. Again, before, after. Now, the image is very dark, as you can see, so I'm going to play about with the selective function. Now, with the selective function, you tap on an area of the screen to drop a control point. And if you want to be more specific, you can touch that and move it around, and it will select based on the color of the area where you drop it. You can then, using 2 fingers, affect the area that it works on. Now, if I simply whack up the brightness like this, I don't like the effect that it gives. It's a little bit too uniform. What I far prefer is to use contrast and structure, because I feel that that's a little bit more targeted and gives a more pleasing result. Hilariously, for an abstract image, I would class it as a little bit more natural. I'm going to add another control point into this bottom left area. I am going to add a little bit of brightness into that because it is very dark. But again, I'm going to concentrate more on contrast and structure. And then, because the thing that drew my eye to this image in the first place was that gorgeous colour from that diagonal strip on the upper left-hand side, I'm going to add another control point into the centre there, and I'm going to whack up the saturation there to emphasise those gorgeous colours. So using the tick, I will accept that. I'm going to go back into the tools, and this time I'm going to choose a vignette. And as we all know, the point of a vignette is to focus the attention of the viewer into a particular area, usually the centre. Now, its native settings, it has an outer brightness of -50. I think that's too strong for this, so I'm actually going to take that up a little bit, and then I'm going to increase the inner brightness a tad. Again, just to really draw the eye into the center. Also, for the purpose of drawing the eye into the center, I'm going to use the brush, and I'm going to dodge the path. You won't be able to see what I'm doing initially, so if I turn on the eye, you're able to better visualize what I'm doing. Accept that, and then again I'm going to use the selective function. I'm just going to drop a control point at the end of that path, make it quite a small control point, and I'm going to increase the brightness and the contrast, just again to give your eye something to lead into. So this is where we started, and this is where we are now. Now this is actually where I finished this image when I first edited it. I think that this, despite not being a nighttime shot, gives the impression of a shot in some dark woods, late in the day, possibly even at night, possibly by moonlight. In fact, I titled the image "Ill Met by Moonlight, Proud Titania." But I'm just going to show you some additional features, because Snapseed is incredibly powerful, but some of the reasons why it's powerful are a little bit hidden for people. And one of the main things is, in the top of the screen, you've got what looks like an undo button. If you click that and then click where it says View Edits, you can see all of the edits that you've made. And if you click them, you can take it back to the point you were there. But you can also, if you click on those things again, you can change them. You can change the settings that you used, which is the right-hand icon there, or the one in the middle is a mask icon. So you can actually mask out parts of the change that you've made, which is incredibly powerful. And I'm going to demonstrate that using one of my favorite features, which is double exposure. So I'm going to add, I have a folder of textures that I use here, and I'm going to add this beautiful rust. Oh no. What do you mean you can't download it? No! Ah, there we are. It's always good when these things work. So, you can change the blending modes as you're seeing here to create a different image. You can also change the opacity of those blending modes. Now, I quite like this look here, but it is obliterating the entire image. So what you could do is, if you go back into that View Edits, click on that first double exposure you've done there, and then click on the mask. You see, this is the image without the double exposure applied. And then down the bottom, you've got the option of 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%. So I'm just going to do 75%, and then I'm just going to draw back on the image, like masking in Photoshop, just along this path. Click OK. And there you go. So now you've got before the double exposure, after the double exposure. It's almost like you've got some flowers appearing along that path. Now, I'm not saying that that image is to everyone's liking, but hopefully you've seen over the course of a very short period of time there how, whilst partaking in my daily activities with the rest of the family, I can unobtrusively capture some images, and then sometimes even when I'm still out on the walk with them, edit those images. And I don't know how long this video will have taken, because I haven't been paying attention, but this has probably end-to-end taken 10 minutes, if that, and most of that time has been spent with me gibbering. So I hope that's in some way enlightening. But yeah, as I say, I recommend AvgCamPro, I recommend Snapseed, and you can, by fiddling about, you can do some quite marvelous things. Thank you very much.